Welcome, everybody. I'm Dee Dee Russell with weddingvenueowners.com, and I absolutely love sharing our wedding venue owner stories. So we have McKenzie with us today, who is with Ariel's Special Events Center. Did I get that correct?
Ariel Special Events Facility.
Facility. Okay. And what city in South Carolina?
We're in West Columbia, so right in the center of the state.
Oh, okay. So McKenzie is so gracious to join us today and share a little peek in the window of what it's like to be a wedding venue owner and manager. I think that the world thinks there's this incredibly romantic, it must be the most romantic life to be a wedding owner, a wedding venue owner, a manager, a catering and events manager, director, somebody in that. And the end results is what everybody kind of focuses on, and the insane amount of hard work to get there is kind of, we make it look so easy, I think, is what it is. So I would love to learn a little bit more about the venue and you, and I just want to thank you so much for being here today to share.
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate it. It's awesome to be able to share our story, and our family has worked so hard on this space that it just means a lot to be able to share it with others. And what you were saying earlier about this wedding and events industry being glamorized, that was one of my biggest points when I was thinking about what I wanted to talk to you about. All of the behind the scenes stuff is what makes an event go off without a hitch. And that's what makes a perfect event. And when you look back at, these venues that have awesome reviews, positive, and they are so happy, that's because of the people who have worked behind the scenes to make that happen. And with a venue, that's part of your job is to do the dirty work. And that might mean cleaning up gross messes, taking out the trash. I mean, you need to be on top of things to get things going and making sure no one sees anything that
Absolutely.
You notice.
I think the sign, this is how, in my opinion, a professional from an amateur or someone who should be doing it versus someone who shouldn't. So anyone that's like new and thinking, oh, I don't know if I could do this. I think if you have this thing, you're going to be great. If you can be chill in the moment of chaos and find a solution, you're going to be just fine. You're going to freak out and run around freaking everyone else out. Please move to another industry. I don't know which one is, maybe ER, doctor, I don't know. But in events, there is something that will go wrong every single time. Unexpected things. There's too many variables. And if you can handle it with chill and just handle the problem and no one ever knows, then you just mark it up for another event that went by that you handled that thing and no one knew. Or yes, exactly. You clean toilets or vomit or whatever disgusting thing, and also nobody knew.
And that's the whole thing. Like when a person goes to an awesome wedding, you don't want them to know what you did behind the scenes. You want them to have a great experience. And that is what it's all about. Like, for having an awesome wedding, you have to find those professionals that can accomplish that so that your guests do have a great experience and you have a great experience, because that is going to make all the difference.
Okay, so let's hear about Ariel's, and I'm sure I'm going to say this wrong. I should have wrote it down. Ariel's Event Facility, Ariel's Special Event Center.
It's a mouthful.
Let's hear a little bit about the start and then the history of it.
Yeah, so like a lot of venues, we're family owned and operated. In 2002, my in-laws, Andy and Kelly, they purchased this building and property. When they purchased it, it had been a bar, it had been a music venue, but it was in really rough shape. So my father-in-law is in the construction world. He came in and renovated it and turned it into what it is today. He spent a lot of hard work turning it into what it is. In 2003, they opened. And pretty soon after, we had a in-house caterer come in, and they pretty well managed the space from that point until about 2018. At that point, they were ready to retire. And my mother and father-in-law were unsure about what to do with this space. Do we just rent it out to another business, or do we want to try to continue it without the caterers managing it? So I said, well, that sounds like fun. Let me try. Of course, I have never been in the wedding space before, and I really had no idea what I was getting myself into. I always tell my husband, I really got myself into a pickle, because it's like, what on earth do I have to bring to this building? Like, I had nothing. But these years have passed, and it's been short years compared to others, but we've done really well, and I'm really proud of what we've done. And I've just learned. I've learned from resources online and from other vendors, and we've really come a long way. But that's the short story of Ariels and where we are today.
So what's fascinating about what you just said, and I know that there's a long history between now and between 2003 and 2 years ago, when the caterer decided, and that to me is huge, because the caterer, that catering element, probably managed a huge amount of the logistics of the events that happened in the venue, the timing, the timeline, the ordering, the inventory, probably also the bar. And then for that to go away at the same time you're coming in, what were some of the things that you implemented as far as policy to kind of continue that smooth transition?
Yeah. So the biggest thing was, what do we do when it comes to a caterer? There are a lot of venues who do more like showers and small parties who didn't have a catering policy. And we thought about that, and we're like, oh, we're not sure. We spoke to our insurance people, and they're like, no, they need to be licensed and insured caterers. So that's when we realized, okay, we need to have some sort of catering policy when it comes to food and alcohol, of course. So I started reaching out to caterers in our area, just wanting to meet them, having them come by, because we had, because they were our in-house caterer, we didn't have any other caterers that came to Ariels. So we really didn't know any local caterers. So at that point, I just had caterers come by, spoke to them one-on-one, and started building a list. But what I wanted to do was to have more of an open vendor policy. And with that came struggles, because some people think that they're vendors who aren't as professional as we would like them to be. So it's just kind of evolved. So now we have an approved list, but we do have quite a long list. It's about 15 different caterers right now.
Wow.
But that allows it to be a wide variety of price points and food types. I don't want any bride to tell me, well, your list isn't inclusive enough. So that's why I've made this long list. And I'm more than happy to help our brides choose a caterer based on their price point, based on their budget, the food types that they like. I don't want them to come to me and tell me, no, you're too strict with this. Because I think there's sorry.
So with the caterers that you have, and that being a long list, which is great, I think this just came up in the wedding venue owners group, as a matter of fact, a debate on how many caterers you should have listed. Should it be 3? Should it be 4? And then there's a lot of opinions, of course. And that's the thing I love about wedding venues. What works for this one will not work for this one 2 miles up the road. What is perfect situation for this one isn't the same as the one in Montana versus the one in Buffalo, New York. So that's the beauty of it all, is just sharing the information and letting the venue owner decide what's really great for them, but at least they have all those options. So with 15, do you have a caterer relationships where maybe they come in and they do tastings once in a while, or they, you do an open house and you feature kind of maybe a core group, or do you stay away from that?
Yeah, so we have done open houses that feature a caterer. Typically, it's a caterer that's on or in one of our packages that includes catering. So we have the wedding only option, where it's or wedding venue only option where it's simply the venue, the tables, the chairs, no catering, no decor. And then we have other packages that do include catering, and we've recently started working with an additional caterer for that. So we work with 2 options for those packages. And we have group tastings now. We have one coming up in June for a group tasting. And then that way it's ticketed. Guests who have booked their wedding with this caterer can come in, try their food. And it works out really nicely, both for the caterer and for us, because the caterer is a small family catering company. So they can't go and make tasting boxes for 50, different couples each time. It makes so much more sense to do something like you said, an open house or a group tasting.
I love the group tasting idea. I've seen that at many different venues, and I've seen the caterers that work the hardest for the venues, meaning have the most professional staff, are the most reliable, are very customer service oriented, so that when the venue is referring, they know that that is going to be an extension of the policies and the standards that the venue has. And that relationship is hard to find, where you really know that that caterer is going to live up to the expectations you start and continue that on. That's why I think some caterers get upset or offended that they're not on those lists, but catering can really ruin an experience or enhance an experience. So, and what's always pointed out is that the guests never know that the venue didn't cater. So it's a really big and important relationship. So when you have the group tasting, can you share with me what that looks like? Are there multiple vendors? Is it, between 6 and 8 p.m. in the evening? What day is it? Those types of things. What does it look like?
So our first group tasting is in June, but what I do have experience with is our open house. And what we did for that was we had one caterer come in. I reached out to a bartending company that a lot of our couples like to use. They came in, they provided the alcohol. So couples got to see how the caterer was set up, how they worked, and how the bartender worked. I also reached out to a decorator, and she came in, did some magic in here, and had some really beautiful setups, florals. And typically, our open houses have always been during the week in the evening. That tends to work out for most of our clients, because most of them do work a traditional 9 to 5. And it works out for us too, because, our weekends are typically booked.
Okay. And then, so is there a specific day? So for the group tasting, this will be your first group tasting that you're doing?
Yes.
So will there be one caterer or multiple caterers?
So we're just doing one caterer for this group tasting. And this is the caterer that is in our package that includes catering.
And did you invite only booked couples to this tasting, or is it booked couples and prospective couples?
So this is booked and prospective. When COVID hit, our caterers who are in this package kind of stopped doing tastings for a while. And I found that was a really big turnoff for our couples. Like when they were touring, they typically would ask, can we try the food? And it's always disappointment when I give them the answer that no, the caterers are not doing tastings right now. So I explained that to them, and we worked out this group tasting idea. And what I did was I set up a event on Eventbrite. Couples and prospective clients can book their tickets through that website. And then what we'll do between us as the venue and between the caterer, we will deduct the ticket price from our package price. So that way it creates like a sort of deposit for the couple, so we can ensure that we have the correct number of seats, the correct number of food, or correct amount of food. But it's also an incentive for them to come try the food, and an incentive for prospective clients, because if they choose to book with both us as the venue and the caterer, then they'll get a sort of discount off of their package price.
I love that. That's great. So what are you doing to advertise this to? Are you advertising it out there, or are you just kind of keeping it in with the prospects that have already kind of come through your system?
I'm advertising a little bit. We have it listed on our Facebook page. I've also emailed all of our booked brides who have chosen this caterer to come and try their food. Most of them have responded that they would like to come. And we have several who are not booked who have purchased tickets. So to me, that is a great step in the right direction that they will potentially book with both of us.
Absolutely. So, how many weddings do you typically book in a year? And I know that's a challenging question for you because you kind of came on as wedding chaos happened in 2020. But on a typical year, the event, the Ariels has been around for a while. So, what is a typical number of booked weddings?
So, weddings, we typically do about 30 per year. We are a small business, so we don't do as many other venues, but I also like it that way because it allows me and our team to really focus on each event, to really focus that the wedding is getting the right amount of attention from us. Total outside of or including weddings and other events, we do about 40 to 50 events per year.
And where are most of your wedding leads coming from? Do they typically come just through the website and like maybe search engine searches or?
Yeah, so we see a lot of Google searches, and I try to ask every person that comes in, how did you hear about us? And almost always the answer is Google. We get some leads from Facebook and we get some from the Knot and Wedding Wire, but for the most part, Google is our biggest lead source. And there was something else I was going to say about that, and it totally slipped my mind.
Do you do any wedding shows? I know that you mentioned you do one in-house or one or more in-house, but do you go off-site and do other wedding shows, or have you found that to not really be a focus in your advertising plan?
So yes, we have done wedding shows. We had at one point one large wedding expo in our area, and we would do that. We would try to do that yearly. So before COVID, we had done it 3 times in a year. And then before that, before I came on, my mother-in-law, the owner, had done it several times before. So yes, we tried to get into that at least once a year. Now, post COVID or in the midst of COVID, I've been very careful about or just unsure about doing something like that right now. But we do have one coming up, a smaller bridal show coming up in a few months that we will be attending. So that will be the first one in about a year and a half. And I remember what I was going to say earlier. We don't do any paid advertising right now. So we don't have paid advertising on Facebook or Google. We don't even pay for the Knot or Wedding Wire. So I think that's another important thing to note about us. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't, because there have been times that we have advertised for a certain event, like our open house. We've advertised on Instagram or Facebook, but we don't actually spend a lot of advertising money.
Who manages your social media? And it sounds like you're focusing on Facebook, Instagram. Are you guys on TikTok yet?
No, we're not on TikTok. But I have been managing it. At one point, we did have a venue coordinator who was working part-time with us. She was managing it a little bit. And I have to say, like, me managing it, it's not a regular posting type of thing. And that's something where we definitely can work on. I would love to get into regular posting and really have a well thought out social media plan. But I'm just not quite there yet, but that is a goal.
It's a lot of work. It's
yes.
a lot of dedication, a lot of feeling creative in those moments and being on a schedule. And so what does, if you could walk us through, what does it look like when you get an initial ping from a potential client? Maybe most of them are coming through the contact form on your website or calling, but what does that look like to the point that you're initially communicating? What are those steps like? And then prior to them even coming in for a tour, and then after a tour, when do they sign the contract? Those types of things. If you could walk us through kind of like somebody hits up your website and go.
Yeah. So we we get a lead from our website. It goes directly into our CRM. We use Dubsado, and through Dubsado, we have automated emails that typically we just approve before it goes out. So the first email that a lead will receive is a, hey, thanks for reaching out. We're going to get back to you with some more details within 24 hours. But for now, check us out on social media, check out our website. You can see our available dates, all that good stuff.
Can
So
I interrupt there on the available dates? Do you have another platform that you use, Calendly or one of those, or is it through Dubsado?
I just keep it on our website and I update it manually. So anytime we get a booking, I'll just go into Squarespace, which is our website hoster, and I'll make sure our available dates are updated. Now, something about that is you have 365 dates in a year, but I do not list every single date. I list our Saturdays only, and I've written copy that says, if you need a date outside of a Saturday, please let us know, and we'll let you know the availability. So getting back into, I guess, the next step that our lead would get, side point, we do have a part-time venue coordinator who works with our couples from initial inquiry until booking. So my girl, Lacey, she does that for me right now. She just started a couple months ago and she's doing great. So Lacey will look at the lead, see if it's available, see if the date's available. Our biggest things are date, of course, and number of guests. We are a relatively small venue. I do not like doing weddings over 175 guests. So that's a big point for us. So we look at guest count. From there, we send an available email or a not available email. After that email is sent, it has a question in it. Are you available for a 10 to 15 minute phone chat this week? So at that point, typically the bride will tell us, yes, I'm available anytime this week. And we've actually gotten a really good response from having that question. I know other wedding industry people have said, that's too big of a commitment for someone to take, but it's actually worked out really well for us. So at that point, Lacey will have a quick phone chat with the client or potential client, and then they'll schedule a tour. We do private tours based on their schedule, show them around. It usually takes about 30 minutes. From there, we'll send a thank you email. And at that point, we just kind of wait a little bit. About 2 weeks later, if we haven't heard from them, we'll send another follow-up email. But at that point, if we still haven't heard from them, we consider them moved on. We might send a little Google questionnaire, a Google form that asks them, like, what did you like about Ariels? What did you not like? Ultimately, why didn't you choose Ariels for your wedding? It gives us a little bit of feedback so I can, make adjustments if they're feasible adjustments. But if the client does choose to go with us, at that point, their information is sent to me and I handle booking through Dubsado. Contract is sent online. Their initial invoice is sent online. And from there, I'm in communication with them until the event.
Excuse me. So what does the deposit structure look like?
Right now, our deposit is, well, we don't call it a deposit. After COVID, right. we have moved away from that word. Yes. So we call it the first payment or the initial payment. Your first payment is 25% of the package that you choose. So of course that will vary depending on which package. So you're looking at, for a wedding, anywhere from like $675 to I think like $1,250 on, a minimum guest count of 50 guests. So for us, it's a good investment that we know that they're serious. And we've also broken up payments into 3 more payments so that as we get closer to the date, they've put more and more money on that date. That was another thing that we changed because of COVID. We had so many dates that were booked with a $500 deposit. with no other money placed on the date. And then our final payment due date was 1 month before the wedding. So then we get calls a month before the wedding telling us, oh, well, our date, we've canceled the wedding, or we're going to reschedule, but we don't know a date and we don't want to move the date. We would rather just cancel. So that put us into a really difficult position where we had little to no money on a date for a booked client. And that is why we had to change that.
So is it non-refundable, the initial 25%?
Yes. In our previous contract, pretty much everything was refundable. But now we have had to make it a little bit more serious because of the struggle from having to refund so much money last year. Yeah.
I absolutely understand that. I think I was working for I was a catering and events director at that time. And I think in 1 week, I think we went down almost $600,000 in 1 to 2 weeks. It was amazing and very challenging. And so a lot of our small business owners really had to scramble and figure that out. And I know that our brides and grooms and engaged couples felt, slighted, but I think that, really kind of understanding both perspectives is that, once that date is gone, it can't be given to somebody else. Once that date is booked, if there's any uncertainty or you're not really sure or if mom comes along after and doesn't want this one, but wants this one, or whatever happens afterwards, in the couple's perspective, I get it. This is about you and it's your special time, but you're also dealing with businesses that, even booking a business, big, huge event like this for one day and taking it off the books can mean 3 other people didn't get it. So I just want to definitely make that point to any couples that are watching. There's a lot more to that. But from a business perspective, when you want the best businesses to work with as a engaged couple, you really want those serious elements there. And, just don't book a venue if you're not 100% sure. And be prepared that every single day it's off the market are 1, 2, 3, 4, 10, 20, 30 other potential leads that could have booked that date, especially with a venue that books 30 weddings a year, which is, not unheard of. There's a lot of venues that I work with that will only book 12, only book 20. Yes, there's the 150s, the some that book a lot of them. But, a lot of our venues book around 30 to 50, I noticed, and they are comfortable in that place. But that means 30 dates in a year. When you take 2 off and then you want to throw them back in, it's such a challenge for that business to recover if those have been removed. You never know who looked on that website at midnight, saw that date was gone, and then just went on somewhere else. So
yeah, definitely.
Can I ask you, with the packages, how many couples, if you can throw this number approximate off the top of your head, how many couples book venue only versus the package?
I would say 8 out of 10 couples book a package with catering.
Wow, that is a huge, important number. I mean, that really goes to show how much they love having some of those elements done for them. So is the package venue, catering, bar, event coordinator? What are some of the elements in those packages that they love so much?
The biggest thing is catering. So many of our couples come in and they are looking for what they call a one-stop shop. But there's some things that we don't include in our packages that would make it a one-stop shop. But what they love is that the major elements are taken care of for them. So our packages include catering. We do linens on all the tables. And our most popular package, we call it our gold wedding package. It includes candle centerpieces. So no florals, but beautiful candle centerpieces, charger plates, cloth napkins in their choice of color, uplighting, some other little decor items. And that's been the most popular package because those are the most popular elements that our bride is looking for. They want to see the charger plates and the cloth napkins, and that's a big element for them. So for us, it works out really well. And I love doing that package because when you have more invested into it, it means more to you. Whereas with my wedding venue only package, I feel like out of the loop, out of the wedding planning process. So I don't know as much about my brides who do that package, and I don't know as much about their vendors. So I really love doing the package where we're involved more because we really get to work with them more, and they get even better service because we are doing so much in those packages.
And it's a routine that you've got down. You know,
Yeah.
the timing, the timeline, the policies, the procedures for those days. Those are packages that you know are going to be facilitated beautifully.
Yeah.
And that makes a big difference. Tried and true, I guess.
Yeah, it really does.
So what makes couples book with you guys? I know packages is a huge part, but what are some of the reasons you think couples go with Ariel's Event Center as opposed to some of the other venues that they have to choose from?
I think the biggest thing is we have realized who our bride is. So it was a really big struggle for me when I first started because I, of course, am comparing our event space to the major event spaces in our area and what they do and who their bride is. And a lot of emphasis is put on reaching the luxury bride. But I have realized that that's not our bride, and that's okay because who our bride is makes sense to us and works for us. So what they love is that we are a beautiful space, but we're also very affordable. And just because we're affordable doesn't mean that we lack on the professionalism or the service. And I always try to point our couples into the direction of looking at our Google reviews because they are so positive and so I think they're very encouraging for someone to look at if they're between two venues and they take a look at our reviews to see what other brides have said about their experience with us. It really makes a huge difference. So the fact that we're beautiful and affordable are the two biggest selling points for Ariels.
And I'll chime in there. Now, I have not had the pleasure of coming to Ariel's, though I'm sure my invite is in the mail. I know I'm on my way any day, especially when you do the tasting. I'm super down for that.
Yes.
But I would say no matter what the venue, no matter what the location, no matter if it's this just big giant square with windows that's a banquet space and a banquet space, the most important asset always is the venue owners or managers. And when you have the most incredible luxurious space and no one really cares about it that much, you know, if you have the most maybe humble location, but you have passionate management who really wants to see your wedding succeed and really takes a vested interest in your big day and how, you know, that's important to you and important to them. I think that makes all the difference. You know, the venue management team really knowing the local wedding industry, really caring about, you know, local tourism and economy and being part of the community is huge. And I think that's one thing that sets some venues aside is that they think I'll build this, I'll throw some management in there, you know, it continues to turn over every 6 months, no problem. But when you take the heart out of the space, then it's just a space. So I have to say, you know, you being there and carrying on this legacy that your in-laws started is such a beautiful thing. But then also, you know, really understanding who your bride is and developing something for them that isn't excluding, you know, everybody else. I do love that. There are so many different types of brides. So having a space for each one that they can be proud to have their wedding means a lot.
Yeah. And like I said earlier, it really was a struggle because even a lot of wedding resources that I was, you know, seeking out when I first started, it seemed like so much emphasis was on finding the bride who's spending 30,000 plus on a wedding. And so I thought, oh, well, that's what I need to do, that I need to find that bride, but that's not working for us. Like there's just, it's not going to happen. We're in a very industrial area where Ariels is located. The $30,000 bride is not going to come here. They are going to go downtown. And I understand that. And I get that. But when I realized that who our bride was, then I understood. It was like the puzzle completely came together. I understood everything. Once you realize your niche, you will understand how to find them, how to find that person, how to market yourself, what you need, what kind of copy you need to do on your website, what kind of copy you need in your social media, the pictures to post, the other vendors to reach out to. It really is the missing puzzle piece that you have to find.
And accept and embrace.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, so I know that we're at our 30-minute mark, and I just could talk to you for hours because I think there's so many pieces of information that you have that a lot of venues. On our Austin trip, we went to the Bedford, and I just want to bring that up for a second because the Bedford is in between two businesses that are not the most enticing, elegant spaces. And the investors that purchased that venue did so despite what was on either side of that building. And they book over 120, 130 weddings a year, and a mid to upper income bride because they designed the inside of that space so beautifully. And they have a management team that absolutely loves their brides. They are not downtown. They're not, actually, I'm sorry. I think the Bedford is Nashville. My apologies. But aside from the point is, it's not just the building, right. It's the team that absolutely has a passion for weddings and loves booking those weddings. And like you said, it understands your bride and is devoted to that bride and that bride's vision and what makes the event special for that couple. So let me ask you real quickly, how do you get them to review? Do you have a process afterwards that encourages more reviews?
Yes. So I send them an email after their wedding. It's usually the week after their wedding. And I just say something like, "Hi, we're so happy for you. Congratulations. You were a beautiful bride. The wedding was gorgeous. And we are so appreciative that you chose Ariels to celebrate." And from there, I say, "We have great news. First, your damage deposit is going to be refunded. Next, if you can please leave us a Google review, it would mean so much to us." And we also include the link to to write a Google review. And then third, we ask for pictures from them or from their photographer. And at that point, I typically know that they did have an awesome event. I check in and make sure everything's going good. And then they respond back and they were like, "Yes, everything was awesome. Thank you so much. I'm going to leave you a review." And most of the time they do leave a review. I have had some who haven't yet. But we can always reach back out and ask for one again. But just really asking for it. They don't know otherwise. They don't know how much our livelihood depends on reviews. So you really have to ask for it.
I love that system. And I love that you're giving that really great news. Here's your deposit.
Yeah.
That's always a really good little, whoo, I forgot, or, oh my gosh, we just got back from this honeymoon and now we're getting this deposit, which is amazing. I did forget to ask, what is the day of the wedding look like at Ariel's? What time does it start? What time is set up? What time does it end?
Yeah. So typically our weddings are 12 hours. That's the minimum day for a wedding. And most of our brides 11 a.m. to 11 p.m. We do offer a 2-day rental, which most of our brides take us up on. And that 2-day rental looks like a half day before the wedding. Typically it's on a Friday and it's usually about like 6 hours. In that time, they can decorate, do extra setup, have their vendors come in if they need to do extra setup as well. They can also have a scheduled rehearsal time as opposed to working around our calendar for their ceremony rehearsal. Like I said, that is the most popular thing. So by that point, all decorating is done. And then at 11 a.m. when we open, our on-site venue coordinator gets here. They open, make sure everything's looking good, and welcome whoever is there first. And they're always, our on-site people are always keeping their eye on things, not in a creepy way, but just in a making sure things are going well type of way. Just walking through, checking trash, checking, supplies to see if anything needs to be restocked, but also asking if they can help the bride or anyone else who might be setting up, asking if they can assist in any way. Even before the wedding, tables and chairs are already set up. Linens are on. If they've ordered any decor through us, that's already on. That way it doesn't interfere with their time. We also have our setup team for the outdoor chairs. That's typically already done before they come in. We try to have as much done as possible before a wedding. And then that way we can just focus on, is the venue clean? Are we, do we need to do any spot cleaning or, little things like that. So from that point of setting up, wedding might be at like 3, reception is inside, and then we do a full cleanup afterwards, put away tables and chairs. We hire a cleaner to come in after every event. We work with the same person, and he's awesome. He comes in at 11 p.m., stays for a couple of hours to clean, and the venue is totally clean and ready to go for another event the following day. So
you will do a Sunday?
Occasionally. We don't prefer it. We prefer to do one wedding a weekend. But depending on the weekend, depending on the interest, we would do 2 weddings in a row. But we've also recently been doing a few baby showers that have been okay, especially with the venue being flipped to the point of all we have to do is set up for a couple of hours beforehand, and then they can come in and do the shower. It's worked out okay. Do you have your own tables and chairs? Yes.
How many chairs do you have? Do you have 2 sets, one for the outdoor and indoor, so that you don't have to flip, or one set?
We have one set of indoor chairs, about almost 200, but most of our weddings are about 150 or less. The outdoor chairs, we currently work with an event rental company to provide those for us, and we just pay per event. We are looking into purchasing our own outdoor chairs in the future. That way it just makes it makes more sense for us to have our own outdoor chairs, because we are using them so often. The way our space is set up is that if a bride were to want everything inside, a ceremony and a reception, the reception space would already be set up for the ceremony space, meaning guests would be seated at their tables for the ceremony, as opposed to our outdoor space, which is dedicated to the ceremony, and then they can come inside for the dedicated reception space. So that is the most common setup for us, and it works out the best.
So for your event coordinator, is that an employee of Ariels? Is that someone that is just coming in on that one day only? Is that someone that kind of gets involved with them through different resource, or how does that work?
It's usually just someone who comes in for the day of, but it's also someone who has worked at Ariels a lot. So we cycle through about 4 or 5 different people that we know and we trust, and we know that they're good. And they also know Ariels really well, because they've been working day of events often. For our packages that include more, like the catering packages, the decor packages, we have one person from start to finish, and then we include an additional person from the start of the ceremony until the end of the reception, or really until the close time. That way, it can be a lot on one person to manage an entire event, to make sure everything is going smoothly. So to have 2 people there, especially 2 people when there are more things that we take care of, is very important. And then a lot of times I come in on the day of a wedding and I'll take pictures. I'll stay a little while just to make sure things are going smoothly if I notice anything, because as the manager, I'm going to notice things that the day of person may not notice because I'm, focused in on these things. So I'll come in and I'll take care of whatever needs to be taken care of. It's the one person, but we also have help.
Okay, well, I think that answers a lot of our questions, and I'm so appreciative for your time, McKenzie. I am really appreciative, especially I love the fact that it's been a small business owned for such a long time. I think most venues have not been in business for, what is it, almost 20 years?
Yeah.
Almost, coming up pretty soon.
Yeah.
Weathered a big, huge recession, weathered, pandemic. Nobody's, there was no plan and outline for how to manage that. And then starting up this year, it kind of feels like a whole new year of startups. So do you have, as we depart and we end, and do you have any kind of words of wisdom for other event management teams or leaders? You're not the exact owners. You kind of came in and you transitioned and you helped that, but do you have any best pieces of advice that would help somebody really love what they do as an event manager and just kind of, make it a smoother, better position for them, I guess?
Yeah, I think the best thing to do is to really get involved in the event. That will put your heart into it, and knowing the bride will help you to want the best for them. And putting yourself in their shoes, going back to when you were a bride or a groom, and how you wanted your wedding to go, imagine that for them. And from there, you should, you'll do everything you need to do to make it a wonderful experience for them.
Awesome. I agree with that wholeheartedly. And I got the little nickname wedding nerd, not for, frivolous reasons. I still get teary at every wedding. I get the little thing right here.
Yes.
I mean, no matter how many you see and no matter how many venues I tour, I think I'm over the 700 mark now. You always learn something at every venue. You always meet a venue owner that teaches you something you never considered, that you never knew before, that reminds you to be passionate and excited about weddings. And if you're not, or if you're feeling, I think, a little disconnected or a little unsure, or even just the feeling of burnout. Everybody has that once in a while when they have a really bad client. Get with your colleagues, get with your venue owners, share in the group, the Wedding Venue Owners Community and Managers Community on Facebook. I'll put the links in, connect with other venue owners. I know a lot of times someone will reach out and maybe they didn't get a warm reception and they thought, oh, there's too much competition in my area, I can't connect with other venue owners, but you really can. Venue owners and managers are there to support each other and share information and lift each other up through all of those challenges. So I really encourage you to share more with us, share the wedding hangovers that you might experience, the tough weekends, the back-to-backs, or your successes. And I'm just so glad that we got a chance to meet you and be a little more personal with you. You've been in our group for a while. So we'll share this on YouTube and I'll send you all the links, and we'll put all your links for Ariels in the video, as well as your website and everything, so that couples can get to know you, and anyone in South Carolina, all over South Carolina, not just in your neck of the woods. And then even further out who may have questions or may want to come tour your venue because they met you and fell in love with you and enjoy the way that you work with clients. I really do hope that happens as well. And just want to thank you so much for your time.
Yes. And I want to thank you too, real quick. When I found this Facebook group, it felt like I found my tribe of fellow venue owners. And like you were saying earlier, like being able to, or at least when you do get burnt out, being able to vent to other venue owners. And that has made a world of difference, because then you realize, like, I'm not the crazy one, they understand what we're going through. So that has made such a huge difference to be involved in this community, just to feel like, you have friends, you have support. So thank you for that.
Oh, I love that. Well, that's what we're all about. And no one should ever feel like they're a venue on an island way out in the Pacific all by themselves. So thank you so much again for your time, McKenzie. And I will let you know when we publish this to YouTube and put this around. And I just want to appreciate you and love you up, and send me some photos so I can add them to the video. And we'll just continue to follow along with you and continue to get to know you.
Oh, you too. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Bye, hon.